Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing. Let's have some fun. My aunt found time to attend social functions aimed at furthering the cause of women in society. As a small child, my attendance was looked upon by the membership as perfectly normal. Auntie, for all her male-hating beliefs, or maybe because of them, was a respected leader of various women's organizations. Her wit, intelligence, and organizational skills were considered a valuable asset. Being financially independent of any male enabled her to meet men as equals, thereby not being intimidated by them, and eventually earned her a leadership role. As I was her child, and always acted in a most proper manner, I also was welcomed, becoming somewhat of a mascot. Growing up, many of my opinions were directly influenced by concepts expressed by my aunt and her friends. I never felt that being polite was a weakness of character, as most boys do. My proper manners, soft speech patterns, and gentleness earned their complete trust. Aunt Lily often received compliments as to my genteel manners and deportment. This always brought a glow of pride to my aunt's features, bringing us even closer together. As most of the women belonged to many of the same organizations, I became quite familiar to them, and vice versa. They eventually accepted me as a junior member of their organizations. I think they felt they could start their revolution by converting me. Therefore, I was privy to all their conversations and plans to further women's rights. I learned many of their feminine secrets. In addition, as their mascot, I was always being hugged, tickled, squeezed, and innocently flirted with as part of my acceptance. As I was always around and, more importantly, had available time, many of the women eventually felt comfortable enough to ask for my assistance with different parts of their clothing. I can't count the number of times as a young boy that I was asked to brush off their shoulders, button their blouses in back, check the seam of their hose, or even center the zipper of their tight skirts. This afforded me ample opportunity to discover what a mature woman felt like under her clothing. It eventually developed into a game between the women and myself. I would actively search out opportunities to fix their clothing, and they would challenge each other to expose more and more of their covered bodies in an effort to see who would be first to refuse the dares. Those few who did initially refuse received such a chiding from their peers that eventually I was being asked to perform all kinds of personal chores for the women. This included painting their nails, both finger and toe, massaging their tired feet and calves, and brushing their hair. Instead of hating these feminine chores, as most young boys would, I came to enjoy and look forward to them. As I matured into my teenage years, I realized how much I enjoyed their rituals of acceptance and sought ways to increase the number of instances that I was hugged, squeezed, flirted with, and kissed. As my sophistication concerning feminine apparel grew, it became common knowledge to the membership. They began asking for my opinion or suggestions about the way they looked, how their clothes hung, and if their hair was fixed properly. I was always careful to tell the truth, even when being negative, but in such a manner that I didn't offend. I also discovered how easy it was to be liked and accepted by my aunt's friends simply by remembering to offer an unsolicited compliment. Whenever I noticed a positive change in someone's hairstyle or dress, I would tell her how flattering it looked, or how it made her look younger or thinner. This endeared me to them, again earning me numerous hugs and kisses, which I enjoyed and used in my adolescent fantasies. As I grew older, the fantasies became more complex. Initially, I tried to picture myself as Lily. I attempted to insert my mind into her body, feeling what it was like when she dressed, walked, and moved. I would envision her dress draped over my imagined breasts, drawn tightly across my firm derriere as it swirled around my nylon-encased knees when I walked across a room in my 3-inch heels. I pictured my smoothly shaven legs encased in sheer nylons and my arched feet tapping across the floor in high heels. I did enjoy my illusions, but was always left wanting. Therefore, I was compelled to create new mental images. In these new fantasies, I became my aunt's daughter instead of her nephew. This was much more satisfying. Oh, how pleasant it would be to share our being female. We could spend our days and nights pursuing all the wonderful adventures my new identity would allow. Now I could wear the dresses. Now we could share each other's clothes. Now we could go to the beauty shop, have our nails manicured and our hair styled while we eavesdropped on women's mysterious conversations. When we went shopping, I could actually try on the dresses. I envisioned us girl talking over lunch while being flirted with by the waiters and the male customers. If I was her daughter, she would no longer be concerned with being as modest in my presence, since we were both female. It was much easier to create new adventures while still staying within my own body versus taking over my aunt's. The women became so comfortable with my constant presence that they seldom bothered with being overly modest when I was around. A few even teased me. They allowed me liberties which under other circumstances they would have of thought unladylike. I was free to tickle them, sit in their laps, rest my head against their chest, and at times when they were getting ready to go out and march, see them in different states of undress. I was careful whenever this happened, thereby never exposing my newly developing desires towards them. I'm not sure if my aunt was ever really fooled, but she never spoke about it. The women and I developed a special warmth towards each other, which I carefully nurtured and protected as I grew older and more aware. Maybe because they placed such a high value on how they appeared to the public and how they protected themselves from being embarrassed in the presence of males was what made me feel that I was special. As I said before, I was their mascot. One day, an important rally was to be held in the city park, at which women's equality was to be championed by the combined memberships of the different women's groups. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons, few women were in attendance at the pre-rally meeting. Seeing the consternation on my aunt's face over the small turnout, I offered to join the ladies to help swell their ranks. At first, this was rejected by most of the membership, since I wasn't a female. They felt my attendance would be construed as if I had been forced to attend, therefore limiting the rally's effectiveness. During the discussion over my fitness, a smile grew on my aunt's face. Getting the attention of the group, my aunt turned to me and asked, "Robert, do you really want to help us? Would you be willing to do anything we needed done to make the rally more successful?" "Aunt Lily, I am prepared to do whatever you or the ladies ask of me," I rashly stated. "Wonderful. What we need is more women at the rally. What I propose we do is dress you up as one of us, namely my niece. With the proper clothes, hairstyle, makeup, and coaching, you should easily pass as one of us. Even one more female will help the cause. If you really want to help, this is the best way. Are you willing to go to this length for us as you've promised? Or are you a typical male, concerned with only your own agenda?" This wasn't what I had expected. Looking at the hopeful faces turned towards me, I quickly realized this was a turning point in my relationship with my aunt's friends. If I turned down my aunt's challenge, I would never again enjoy their total friendship or trust. I would never again be safe in their eyes. Quickly, I decided that their acceptance and attentions were more important than any possible embarrassment I might feel being in public dressed as a female. Secretly, I relished the idea of wearing feminine attire in public with my aunt's approval. Nodding my head in acceptance, as I feigned embarrassment, I whispered agreement to my aunt's request. "I will do whatever you need of me, as I have already promised." My response was greeted with cheers, followed by grateful hugs and kisses from all those in attendance. After the room quieted down, a discussion as to what was needed for my transformation was quickly decided upon. 3 of the ladies were sent out to purchase or bring from their homes the clothes and other articles needed to transform me into Eve, a name they selected since I was to be the first new woman taken from a man just as the original Eve had been. Since we still had 3 hours before the rally was to begin, some of the women got on the phones and began calling other members who had said they weren't coming. They explained what I was prepared to do in the name of women's equality, thereby shaming many of the absent members into changing their minds and attending. This caused 28 more women to promise their support. As each new success was reported, I became even more of a hero, or should I say heroine, than before, earning me additional hugs and kisses. When the 3 women returned, their arms laden with packages, my gender transformation began. I was handed a pair of pink nylon panties and told to change into them. As I turned to leave the room, my aunt stated in a firm, no-nonsense voice, "Eve, there isn't time for you to be modest. We have too much to do. We not only have to dress you as a young lady, but we need time to coach you in how to walk, talk, and gesture properly. Just get undressed." Whenever Aunt Lily spoke in that voice, I knew better than to argue. Within seconds, I slipped one foot then the other into the lace-edged openings. I shimmied the tight undies up my legs, over my thighs, and around my waist. I immediately remembered the difference women's panties felt against my skin versus how my own male shorts felt. It was definitely a pleasurable sensation. My buns felt caressed. Aunt Lily directed 2 women to assist me in getting dressed while the others watched. A waist cincher with garters, then sheer nylons, a bra, a full white nylon slip with exquisite lace at the bodice and hem, a beautiful powder blue silk button up the front, flare dress, and 3 inches matching heels were next. A long-haired blonde wig, nail polish, lipstick, and makeup were applied. Clip-on earrings, a diamond watch, rings, and a gold cross and chain were added. The effect was astounding. This wasn't like when I had cross-dressed. This was for real. Looking at myself in a mirrored wall, I was amazed at how these few items of feminine apparel, when properly installed, had significantly changed my figure. I was also impressed at how delightful, properly fitted women's apparel felt. I now came to realize why my aunt felt so strongly that women were superior. I no longer felt like a boy dressed in women's clothes. I felt natural. I felt like a woman. The clothes felt correct. I felt correct. These few items made me feel pretty sensuous and more alive. Definitely not silly. The 2 women, of course, were totally pleased with themselves. They had transformed the ugly duckling into the beautiful swan. All 3 of us were complimented equally by the others. As time was now growing short, it was decided to forego teaching me how to speak in a more feminine pitch in lieu of practicing how to move as a female and how to sit most properly. Each lesson was an imposing challenge. The way my new clothes adjusted themselves to the way I stood, walked, or sat thrilled me. I had never realized the problems nor the exquisite joys women incurred wearing their attire. I learned how to modestly cross my legs, how to adjust the drape of my skirt, and how to gently swing my hips instead of my shoulders when walking. Throughout this coaching, I never once lost the sensation of being female and, more importantly, pretty. I now began to wonder how different my life might have been had I been born and raised as a girl. With each new example of the differences, I decided that I would have enjoyed being female much more. It was at that moment that my aunt took my hand and gently pulled me aside. Whispering so the others couldn't hear, she stated, "Enjoying yourself, aren't you, Eve? I've been watching you. You're elated being dressed as a girl. You like looking pretty, and you are pretty. Well, I'll let you in on a secret. I like it too. I think you look much better as my niece than as my nephew. And don't think you've been fooling me. I know you've been stealing into my room and wearing my lingerie and dresses. That's where I got the idea for you to cross-dress in the first place. Exhilarating being a female, isn't it? How would you like to continue wearing girls' clothes with my permission and assistance on a full-time basis? If fact, how would you like becoming my niece Eve on a full-time basis? Just think of all the fun things we could do together that you can't share with me as Robert. How would you like to have your hair and nails done at the beauty shop like I do each week? How would you like going clothes shopping, entering the dressing rooms, trying on the pretty dresses, slips, blouses, and skirts instead of just waiting outside while I do it? Think of all the fun we could have fooling people, especially men. Think of how it would feel being whistled at by men who think you're pretty. Think of how it would feel lounging around the house in the evenings in the most sensuous of peignoirs. Think of how it would feel going to sleep in sheer nighties and silken negligees. Think how much closer we could be if we were both females. Think of how pretty you would feel, not once in a while, but every day. You'd really like that, wouldn't you? Well, wouldn't you? I couldn't say anything at first. I was scared and at the same time thrilled at the prospect of living my life as a female. Questions and answers flashed through my mind. For each concern about changing my lifestyle, an opposing opportunity or delight overcame it. When I ran out of concerns and still came up with additional delights, I knew what course I needed to take. Throwing myself into my aunt's arms, I whispered softly in her ear, "Oh, Auntie, please let me become your niece. You can't believe how much I want it. I didn't realize until this very moment how divine my life could be as a woman. I can't believe how much satisfaction I derive from properly dressing up as a female versus a male. The clothes are wonderful, and you're right, I do delight in being pretty. I want to feel pretty every day. I never again want to be a Robert. I want to become Eve, your niece Eve. I'll do anything you ask if you'll help me." Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.